The marble floors of Dubai's most exclusive hotel gleamed under crystal chandeliers as guests in designer gowns and tailored suits sipped champagne. Outside, luxury cars purred along the red carpet driveway, their headlights glinting against the glass towers that pierced the desert sky. The wedding of the year had begun, and whispers of its extravagance had already reached every corner of the city's high society. At the center of this glittering spectacle stood Amara Siddiqui, a 26-year-old bride whose life had changed almost overnight. Raised in a modest household far from the flashing lights of Dubai, Amara had always been known for her quiet grace and warm smile. Friends described her as kind, humble, and fiercely loyal, a woman who believed in fairy tale endings even when life had rarely been kind. Her groom, Omar Al-Farhan, was a man who embodied power and wealth. At 38, Omar was not just a prominent businessman, but a name that carried influence across the Gulf's luxury markets. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to control. His family's legacy stretched back generations, with palaces, private islands, and billion-dollar ventures marking their dominance. The ceremony was breathtaking. The ballroom ceiling shimmered with thousands of tiny lights, creating the illusion of a starlit desert night. Musicians played soft Arabic melodies while waiters circulated with golden trays of delicacies. A custom-made wedding cake, towering over 6 feet, stood as a testament to wealth and grandeur. Guests whispered in awe. Omar had spared no expense for the woman who had captured his heart. But even amid the glamour, subtle hints of unease flickered beneath the surface. A few of Omar's business associates exchanged guarded looks as Amara entered in her diamond-studded gown. They knew Omar's reputation: charming yet fiercely possessive, a man who expected absolute loyalty in both business and personal life. Amara, radiant and seemingly oblivious, smiled as she clasped his hand, unaware of the scrutiny that followed her every step. Amara's family watched from a corner table, overwhelmed by the transformation of their daughter's life. Her mother dabbed tears of joy, whispering prayers of gratitude, while her younger brother filmed every moment on his phone. To them, this was the dream Amara had always deserved, a chance to step into a world of elegance and stability. Throughout the night, Omar's friends toasted the couple, telling stories of his generosity and power. Laughter filled the hall as dancers spun across the polished floor. Omar's eyes rarely left his bride, but beneath his adoration lurked an intensity that felt heavier than love, an undercurrent of ownership, as if she was already part of his empire. Outside, photographers snapped images of the couple beneath a fireworks display that illuminated the skyline. Headlines would soon declare this the wedding of the decade, a union blending beauty, power, and ambition. Amara, dazzled by the spectacle, allowed herself to believe in the fairy tale. She imagined a life of luxury and security, a fresh start free from the doubts and struggles of her past. What she didn't know, what no one yet suspected, was that her past had not stayed behind. Beneath the silk and diamonds, secrets lingered, waiting for the perfect moment to resurface. The night's laughter and celebration masked the first subtle tremors of a tragedy that would soon shake Dubai to its core. The applause and glittering fireworks of Amara Siddiqui's wedding night faded into memory as the newlyweds settled into married life inside Omar Al-Farhan's towering Dubai penthouse. From the outside, her world seemed perfect. Luxury cars lined the driveway, designer wardrobes filled walk-in closets, and a panoramic view of the Persian Gulf stretched beyond her balcony. But behind the polished veneer, Amara's heart ached with the weight of a secret she had carried even before the wedding day. Rayan Malik had been part of her life since childhood. They had grown up on the same dusty street in Lahore, shared first crushes under mango trees, and promised each other a future when their world was still small. Their bond wasn't the fleeting romance of teenagers. It was rooted in years of trust and quiet understanding. When Amara moved to Dubai for a job opportunity 2 years earlier, they stayed in touch, exchanging late-night messages and whispered phone calls. Rayan had been the one she turned to when life in Dubai felt isolating. Omar's courtship had swept her off her feet with its glamour: surprise trips to Paris, diamonds presented under candlelight, and the promise of security her modest upbringing had never afforded. But deep down, she knew her engagement had been a practical choice. Rayan was love, messy, passionate, and uncertain. Omar was stability, wealthy, influential, and unyielding. Now, weeks after the wedding, Amara felt the gap between appearances and reality widening. Omar's world was suffocatingly formal, every dinner a performance, every conversation measured. The calls from Rayan became her lifeline. They spoke in hushed tones late at night, her phone pressed under a pillow so the walls couldn't overhear. Sometimes she would linger by the balcony, watching the city lights flicker like stars and wondering how long she could juggle two worlds. Rayan had begged her not to marry Omar. "We could have figured it out," he had whispered on the phone weeks before the wedding. "Money doesn't build happiness, Amara, not the kind we had." But she'd brushed him off, convincing herself the marriage was the right decision. She had not expected to find out she was pregnant. The discovery had stunned her. Alone in the bathroom of the penthouse, the test trembling in her hands, she felt her world tilt. She had told no one, not even Rayan at first. The child was his, and she knew it. Omar, for all his outward affection, had been away on business trips for much of their engagement. The realization left her reeling. She was the wife of one of Dubai's most powerful men, yet carrying another man's child. One evening, as the desert sky turned amber, she finally called Rayan. Her voice shook as she revealed the truth. There was a long silence on the line before he spoke. "Then we need to leave," he said firmly. "This isn't just a secret anymore, it's dangerous." But leaving Omar Al-Farhan wasn't simple. His influence stretched into every corner of the city, business, politics, even law enforcement. He was a man who didn't take betrayal lightly. Amara hesitated, torn between her fear and her longing for the life she had once imagined with Rayan. Their conversations became more urgent. They began making tentative plans. Rayan would travel to Dubai under the guise of work, and together they'd find a way out. Amara's guilt gnawed at her. Every time Omar's hand rested possessively on her back during a public event, every time his friends toasted to their perfect marriage. She smiled for the cameras, but inside she was counting the days until Rayan arrived. She didn't notice the subtle signs that Omar's suspicions were already forming. The guarded looks from his associate Karim Al-Zahid, the late-night calls Omar wouldn't explain, the faint tension in his voice when he asked casual questions about her day. Somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered if he already knew. The walls of the penthouse felt closer every day. Amara would lie awake at night, one hand over her stomach, imagining a future where the baby could grow up free from secrets and fear. Yet the city outside seemed to whisper a warning with every breeze that rattled her windows. Dubai was a place where appearances mattered more than truth, and powerful men rarely forgave betrayal. As the city's skyline glittered like 1,000 diamonds, Amara stared out into the darkness and realized she was standing on the edge of a choice that could either save her or destroy her. The early weeks of marriage passed in a haze of public appearances and quiet tension. Amara Siddiqui played her role flawlessly, smiling at charity galas, posing for photographs beside Omar Al-Farhan, and hosting elaborate dinners at their penthouse. But Omar's trained eye for detail, a skill sharpened by years of business negotiations, began to notice the cracks. It started subtly, a text notification that lit up Amara's phone with a name she quickly hid, a call she dismissed too quickly, her voice a pitch higher than usual. At first, Omar told himself it was nothing more than nerves. She was young, overwhelmed by her new life, but the thought burrowed into his mind like a thorn. One night, as Dubai's skyline glittered outside their floor-to-ceiling windows, Omar returned home early from a meeting. He found Amara standing on the balcony, her phone pressed to her ear, speaking in a low, urgent tone. She didn't hear him approach. "Rayan," she whispered, "please don't come here, not yet, it's not safe." The words froze Omar where he stood. For a moment he felt the room spin, the elegant world he had built tilting on its axis. He stepped forward and Amara turned, her face paling at the sight of him. "Who was that?" Omar's voice was deceptively calm, but the sharpness in his eyes betrayed him. A friend, she stammered. A friend, he advanced slowly, the polished shoes clicking against the marble. You're lying to me. Amara's lips trembled. She had rehearsed excuses in her mind for weeks, but none felt convincing under his gaze. Over the next few days, Omar began a quiet investigation. He instructed his trusted associate, Karim Al-Zahid, to check Amara's phone records discreetly. Karim, loyal to a fault, complied without question. What he found left no doubt: frequent late-night calls to a number registered under Rayan Malik, a man from her past. Omar felt the humiliation burn. The whispers that would follow if this became public were unthinkable. His family's honor was not just personal, it was currency in Dubai's elite circles. He could not allow a scandal. The confrontation came late one night. The penthouse was silent except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant city traffic below. Amara sat at the edge of their bed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, as Omar stood across the room, his expression cold. "Tell me everything," he demanded. Amara's eyes filled with tears. She confessed only part of the truth, that Rayan was someone she had loved before him, someone she had struggled to forget. She did not tell him about the pregnancy, not yet. Omar's jaw tightened and he turned away, his mind already calculating the implications. "You will end this," he said finally, his voice low but firm. "No more calls, no more lies. If you value your family's future, you will cut him out of your life forever." Amara swallowed hard, her heart pounding. I can't," she whispered. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Omar spun back toward her, his anger barely contained. But instead of shouting, he leaned in close, his voice a dangerous whisper. "Do not test me, Amara. You don't understand the forces you're playing with." She stared at him, fear knotting in her stomach, but something inside her refused to yield. Her hand drifted unconsciously toward her stomach, a small, protective gesture she hoped he didn't notice. Omar's eyes flickered to the movement, and for a fleeting second, suspicion flared. The silence that followed was heavier than any outburst. Omar left the room without another word, the door clicking shut behind him. Alone in the dim light, Amara's tears finally spilled over. She realized the walls of her new life were closing in, and the dangerous game she was playing had only just begun. The days following the confrontation blurred into a fragile routine. Amara Siddiqui moved through the penthouse like a shadow of herself, careful with her words, deliberate in her movements. To the outside world, nothing had changed. She smiled at Omar Al-Farhan's side during a charity luncheon, laughed politely at dinner with his investors, and appeared every bit the picture-perfect wife the media adored. But behind closed doors, the air between them was brittle, sharp enough to shatter with a single wrong word. Rayan Malik sensed her fear in every message she sent. His texts had grown more urgent. "Amara, tell me if he knows. We need to act now," she responded cautiously, aware that even a single mistake could expose them both. "Not yet," she typed, "but he's watching." Omar, meanwhile, was tightening his grip on her world. Karim Al-Zahid quietly reported her movements, discreetly monitoring calls and appointments. The Sheikh's usual warmth in public now seemed like a performance. Every glance he gave her carried a subtle warning. One afternoon, Amara visited her family under the guise of delivering gifts. Farida Siddiqui noticed her daughter's tired eyes and trembling hands. "Amara, what's wrong?" she asked gently. Amara forced a smile. "Just adjusting to married life." But Farida's maternal intuition whispered otherwise. In private, Amara spoke to Adil, her younger brother, with a rare vulnerability. "I might need your help," she said quietly, not explaining further. Adil nodded, sensing the gravity in her tone. As evening fell, Amara stood on the balcony of the penthouse, staring out at the desert sky turning deep orange and purple. The weight of her pregnancy pressed on her as much as the danger closing in. She imagined her child growing up far from secrets, far from fear. That vision kept her from giving in to despair. The next night, Omar hosted a high-profile dinner at their home. Dubai's elite gathered in designer suits and glittering gowns, sipping champagne under crystal chandeliers. Amara moved among them, her polite smile hiding her turmoil. At the far end of the room, Omar's gaze followed her every step. When their eyes met, hers darted away too quickly, and he noticed. Later, when the guests had left and the penthouse was silent, Omar confronted her again. "You think you can make a fool of me?" His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Amara's hands trembled. "I never meant to hurt you." "You underestimate what's at stake," he said, stepping closer. "My reputation, my family's name. Do you think anyone will stand with you against me?" She swallowed, summoning what courage she could. "This isn't about your reputation. It's about my life and my child, S." His eyes narrowed. "Child." The word hung between them, heavy and dangerous. Amara realized too late what she had revealed. Omar's face hardened, a storm gathering behind his expression. He turned away, walking toward the window, his fists clenched at his sides. "That child is not mine," he said finally, his voice low and cold. Amara didn't answer. Silence filled the room like smoke. Outside, the city lights flickered against the glass, indifferent to the storm brewing within. That night, Amara texted Rayan, "He knows." Rayan replied instantly, "Pack what you can, I'll come for you." But as Amara began to gather her things in secret, she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her. Somewhere in the penthouse, a quiet footstep echoed. Somewhere in the city, a plan was already forming, one that would make escape far harder than she imagined. Omar Al-Farhan's demeanor shifted overnight. Outwardly, he became attentive again, publicly affectionate even. To outsiders, it looked as though the tensions between him and Amara Siddiqui had cooled. But behind the charm, his mind was a battlefield of wounded pride, anger, and cold calculation. He suggested a private getaway to the Maldives, framed as a second honeymoon. "Just us," he said, brushing a strand of hair from Amara's face. "A chance to start over." The words were smooth, but his eyes were unreadable. Amara hesitated but agreed, partly out of fear, partly hoping distance from Dubai might give her and Rayan time to plan. The first few days unfolded like a dream: turquoise waters, white sand beaches, dinners by candlelight on a secluded deck. Amara almost allowed herself to believe Omar's promise of a fresh start, but little signs broke the illusion. Omar's sudden silences, the way he watched her when she thought he wasn't looking, the phone he never let out of his sight. On the third night, as the waves whispered against the stilts of their water villa, Amara woke to find Omar missing. She crept to the balcony and saw him outside on the shore, speaking urgently on the phone. A breeze carried fragments of his words. "No one can find out, not until it's done." Her heart pounded. She retreated quietly, her mind racing. Had he discovered Rayan's plans to help her escape? Was this trip not a chance to reconcile, but a stage for revenge? The following morning, Omar seemed unnervingly calm, as though nothing had happened. He suggested a snorkeling trip on a private boat. As the vessel cut across the sparkling water, Amara forced herself to smile, hiding the panic growing inside her. While Omar dove into the water, Amara slipped into the cabin and frantically texted Rayan. "Something is wrong, he's planning something." But the message failed to send, no signal in the open sea. That evening they dined under the stars. The air was warm and perfumed with frangipani blossoms, but the tension between them was palpable. Omar poured wine for her, his movements deliberate. "To new beginnings," he said, lifting his glass. Amara hesitated before clinking her glass to his. "To peace," she replied quietly. As the night deepened, Omar began asking questions with a deceptively casual tone. About her family, her past, and finally, about Rayan Malik. The way he said Rayan's name made her blood run cold. "You really thought you could hide him from me?" Omar said finally, setting his glass down with a sharp click. Amara's lips parted in shock. "Omar." "You humiliated me," he interrupted, his voice low and dangerous. "In front of the world, whether they know it or not, you carry his child under my name." She stepped back instinctively, but there was nowhere to run, only the dark ocean stretching endlessly behind her. For a moment, Omar's face softened, a flicker of heartbreak visible beneath the rage. "I would have forgiven almost anything, Amara," he whispered, "but not this." He stood, his imposing figure framed by the starlit sky. Amara's mind raced for options: jump into the ocean and swim, scream for help, but they were miles from anyone. The night that had begun with promises of reconciliation now hung on the edge of violence. Somewhere in Dubai, Rayan Malik was preparing to come for her. But on that lonely island, the walls were closing in, and the deadly game had entered its final stage. The morning after the fateful night, the pristine Maldives sunrise hid the darkness that had unfolded just hours before. Amara Siddiqui's absence from the villa was first noticed by the staff, who knocked gently on the doors of the overwater suite. There was no response. Omar Al-Farhan, unusually composed, reported that she had likely gone for a walk along the beach. But as hours passed, unease began to ripple through the staff. On the villa's private shore, a lifeless form was discovered. Amara had been found under the dim morning light, her body battered and motionless near the water's edge. The pregnancy that had been her secret was now heartbreakingly visible, a cruel testament to the life she carried. Omar's face remained an unreadable mask when the authorities arrived, but inside, a storm of anger, regret, and fear churned. His careful world, the world of wealth, reputation, and control, was unraveling. Dubai's media would soon descend upon the story, hungry for scandal, and he knew that any misstep could destroy him. Back in Dubai, Inspector Layla Hassan was called in. A veteran investigator with a sharp eye for inconsistencies, she arrived at the villa alongside forensic teams. The scene was carefully documented: footprints in the sand, a half-open villa door, a knocked-over glass on the balcony. There were signs of struggle, but the details were murky. Had Amara fallen, or had someone ensured she could never leave the Maldives alive? Karim Al-Zahid, Omar's loyal associate, provided a statement. He claimed no one had entered the suite during the night, reinforcing the idea of an internal conflict. Yet Inspector Hassan was not convinced. The luxurious setting did not mask the tension. The discrepancies in the timeline raised red flags. Investigators found Amara's phone nearby. Though water-damaged, fragments of her last messages to Rayan Malik were recovered. "Something is wrong. He's planning something." The cryptic warning sent a ripple through the investigation. It suggested premeditation, a carefully orchestrated plan rather than a spontaneous act. Meanwhile, Dubai's elite buzzed with rumors. Social media exploded with speculation about the sheikh, the missing bride, and the secret lover, each detail magnified under the lens of public scrutiny. Headlines screamed of betrayal, luxury, and deadly consequences. In the palace, Omar's family convened in private. They discussed damage control, lawyers, and the possible impact on their reputation. Yet beneath their calm, anxiety and fear ran deep. Inspector Hassan's team was relentless. No amount of wealth could shield the truth indefinitely. As forensic evidence mounted, questions arose. Who had the most to gain from Amara's death? Was it a crime of passion? Or had someone else acted to preserve the sheikh's reputation and honor? The investigation revealed subtle inconsistencies: broken furniture in the suite, a faint smear of blood on the balcony railing, and footprints that did not match Omar's. Elsewhere, Rayan Malik received the news of Amara's death like a physical blow. The man who had hoped to save her now faced a nightmare: the woman he loved and their unborn child gone. He swore to himself that he would not let her story be silenced, no matter the cost. The Maldives crime scene became the focal point for international attention. Videos leaked online, journalists speculated endlessly, and the story of a bride betrayed, a secret lover thwarted, and a powerful man implicated captivated audiences worldwide. And yet, amidst the chaos, one fact remained. The truth of what had truly happened that night was hidden behind layers of secrecy, power, and fear. If this shocking story has you on the edge of your seat, make sure to subscribe now so you never miss these gripping true crime cases. The news of Amara Siddiqui's death reverberated across Dubai, making headlines in both local and international media. The story of the young bride, the secret lover, and the powerful sheikh captivated audiences, sparking debates about wealth, power, and justice. Public outrage demanded answers, and authorities moved swiftly to investigate. Inspector Layla Hassan led the case with precision. Omar Al-Farhan was summoned for questioning. He maintained a composed exterior, recounting a meticulously rehearsed alibi. He had been asleep in the villa during the critical hours, unaware of the events that led to Amara's death. But subtle inconsistencies in his statements and forensic evidence, footprints, broken glass, and surveillance gaps, began to cast shadows of doubt. Rayan Malik's testimony became a pivotal piece of the investigation. Speaking through his grief, he detailed his relationship with Amara, their plans, and her pregnancy. His calm and sincere demeanor made it impossible for the public or the court to dismiss his account. Amara was a woman trapped between two worlds, he told the investigators. She never wanted harm for anyone except for freedom and her child. Omar's legal team worked tirelessly to protect him, emphasizing his status, influence, and the supposed inconsistencies in witness accounts. They painted a picture of a devoted husband faced with an unpredictable tragedy. Meanwhile, media coverage amplified every new development, scrutinizing every move with relentless intensity. As the trial commenced, Dubai's high courts became the stage for an extraordinary drama. Testimonies from Amara's family, Farida and Adil Siddiqui, painted a portrait of a young woman caught between love and obligation. Friends described her secret struggles, the fear she had hidden, and the moments of hope she had clung to. Forensic experts detailed the evidence from the Maldives villa. The broken railing, the blood traces, and Amara's final messages all suggested that her death was not accidental. Inspector Hassan highlighted these inconsistencies, pointing to a calculated act of control that escalated into tragedy. The courtroom was tense. Omar maintained his dignity, but the weight of suspicion hung heavy over him. Public opinion was divided. Some saw him as a man betrayed by his wife, others as a ruthless figure who had used power to silence a woman. The verdict, when it finally arrived, shocked many. The court acknowledged the circumstantial evidence and the powerful influence Omar wielded, but due to gaps in direct proof, he received a sentence far lighter than the public expected. Outrage erupted online, with hashtags calling for justice for Amara trending worldwide. In the aftermath, Rayan Malik became the voice of remembrance, ensuring that Amara's story was not forgotten. He established a foundation in her name, advocating for women trapped in dangerous relationships and raising awareness about power imbalances and abuse. Omar Al-Farhan retreated from public life, his empire intact but his reputation irrevocably tarnished. Luxury and influence could not shield him from the whispers that followed him. The story of Amara Siddiqui would forever haunt his legacy. If you're captivated by these shocking true crime stories, make sure to subscribe now for more deep dives into betrayal, scandal, and mystery. As Dubai slowly returned to normal, the memory of a young bride, a forbidden love, and a deadly secret lingered in the air. The story became a cautionary tale whispered among elites and the public alike. Even in a world of wealth and power, secrets have a way of coming to light, and consequences are inevitable. The city of Dubai gradually returned to its glittering routines, but the shadow of Amara Siddiqui's story lingered. In luxury hotels, private villas, and bustling media offices, her name had become synonymous with betrayal, danger, and the cost of secrets in a world where wealth and power reigned supreme. Rayan Malik remained a constant presence in the public narrative. Heartbroken but resolute, he dedicated himself to preserving Amara's memory. The foundation he established in her name focused on protecting women trapped in high-pressure marriages and raising awareness about the hidden dangers of wealth and influence. Through interviews, articles, and public appearances, he shared the story of Amara's courage, her love, and the life that had been stolen from her. Omar Al-Farhan's life continued behind the walls of his palaces and offices, but the veneer of invincibility was cracked. Social circles whispered, business partners glanced with caution, and media outlets chronicled every move. Power and money could not erase the scandal. Amara's story became an indelible part of Dubai's collective memory. For Amara's family, Farida and Adil Siddiqui, the grief was profound. Yet in their sorrow, they found purpose. They supported Rayan's foundation, spoke out about the pressures faced by young women in high society marriages, and honored their daughter's bravery. The tragedy transformed them into advocates for awareness, safety, and justice, ensuring that Amara's legacy was not forgotten. Though the city buzzed on with its usual glamour, the story of a bride caught between love and duty served as a warning. Beneath the gold, glass, and luxury, secrets have a way of surfacing, and power can become a weapon in the hands of those who refuse to forgive. For more gripping true crime stories, shocking revelations, and dramatic investigations, make sure to subscribe now. Don't miss the next story that will leave you on the edge of your seat.